Tenant told me to be more professional, so I evicted them professionally. I'm not some big-time property investor or management company. I'm just a small landlord with 4 tenants, trying to keep everything running smoothly while raising 2 kids and juggling life. Most of my tenants have been great, but every once in a while, you get a pair that really puts your patience and your professionalism to the test. Earlier this year, I rented to 2 sisters. They were nice enough at first, polite, paid on time, no major issues. But as the months went by, their living situation quietly expanded. One of them got married, and suddenly her husband was living there full-time, without being added to the lease. And then came the second surprise, a pit bull. Now, I'm not against pets. I do allow them, and I'd already approved their first dog, but bringing in a new dog, and a large one at that, without permission, not okay. I reached out nicely, both in person and by email, asking them to add the husband to the lease and tell me about the dog. No response. I gave them multiple chances. Still nothing. Months passed, and their lease renewal date was approaching. I asked again if they wanted to stay another year. Silence. I followed up twice, and still heard nothing. At that point, I couldn't wait any longer. I needed to start showing the unit in case they planned to move out, so I sent them a polite email giving 2 days notice that I'd be showing the apartment. I even reminded them what's generally expected, that tenants usually tidy up and, for their own comfort, step out during showings. I wanted to make it as easy as possible for everyone. The day of the showings arrived. Because my husband was working evenings, I had to bring my 2 kids, ages 2 and 6, along. I grouped all the showings within a tight 2-hour window, so I wouldn't have to intrude any longer than necessary. When I arrived, the sisters, the husband, the boyfriend, and the newborn were all still there. 7 people in a small kitchen. Then the first prospective renters started arriving. Families with kids, some early, some late. At one point, there were 14 people squeezed into this 800-square-foot apartment. I was holding my toddler, directing traffic, answering questions, while my older child quietly colored under the table. The tenants stayed the entire time, chatting loudly. And then, to top it off, the boyfriend casually mentioned to a couple touring the place that he lived there too. Perfect. 2 unapproved residents confirmed right in front of witnesses. Still, I got through it. Exhausting, but worth it. Because the next day, I had new tenants lined up and a signed lease in hand. Then came the voicemail. That evening, the husband, who wasn't even on the lease, left me a furious message. He complained that my kids had touched their baby's things. They hadn't. That they had to sterilize everything. And that 2 days notice for showings was unprofessional. He actually said I should be more professional in the future. And that's when I felt it. The very next morning, I decided to take his advice. I became very professional. I issued formal lease violation notices. 1 for the extra residents, 1 for the unauthorized dog, a few more for property concerns I'd noted during the showings, sent by certified mail and by email, everything by the book. 30 days later, no response. So I followed up, even more professionally, with a 5-day notice to vacate. And because an eviction notice is, technically, an emergency, I also called their mother, listed as the emergency contact, to inform her. Within 3 days, the tenants suddenly discovered the magic of communication. They sent every bit of paperwork I'd requested, removed the second dog, bought pet insurance, and even licensed the first dog properly. Amazing what professionalism can achieve. When their lease ended a few weeks later, they moved out, left some damage, skipped the final electric bill, and ignored my detailed security deposit statement, explaining the deductions and remaining balance. I sent reminders, politely, but firmly. They ignored those too, until I mentioned I'd be filing in small claims court by a specific date. Then I got an email saying they didn't think it was fair to pay for damages or utilities. So I did exactly what any professional landlord would do. I filed. 2 months later, we were in court. They sat across from me in the lobby, laughing, bragging about how they'd get their deposit back. Meanwhile, I sat quietly, reviewing my folder, lease agreement, photos, receipts, certified mail slips, and notes for the judge. An hour later, the laughter was gone. I'd won. Full judgment. Their mom tried to pay me right there. She didn't have a pen, neither did they. So I reached into my bag and offered mine, the most professional pen in the room. She wrote the check, handed it to me, and as she did, I held out my hand again, got my pen back too. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to, because at that moment, I'd shown them exactly what professional really looks like.